Hello, RJ here, giving you a 15,000 mile review of a 2023 Honda Pilot Elite. This review is for anybody who might be looking to purchase a Honda Pilot, or perhaps even some Honda product planners who might be watching these videos, and hopefully give some good ideas on some items and improvements that they might consider for a mid-cycle refresh. So let's get started. So in this video, I'm going to give 9 areas that I think Honda really did well on and really hit the mark. I'll give 10 areas that I think need a rethink, a little bit more thought. They could be improved, but they're not bad, but just some areas that I have noticed in 15,000 miles. And then finally, 9 nitpicks. So some things that, you know, they're not wrong, they're not broken, but I think as a user, just some areas that I'd love to see be a little bit different. So here we go. So the first area that really like are the overall driving dynamics. The engine is very smooth. The transmission, the 10-speed updated automatic transmission, is extremely smooth, never hunts for gears, always shifts smoothly. The suspension absorbs bumps really well, even with the 20-inch wheels that are on the vehicle. And in the steering, I find the steering to be really quite great. There are some pundits who initially had concerns about the light steering effort, and at first I felt the same way. Was a little bit of a concern area for me, but after living with the vehicle now for 15,000 miles, I think I really understand what the engineers were trying to achieve, and that was the light steering makes this vehicle effortless to drive around town, driving in, you know, in shopping center areas, driving in the driveway, trying to park the vehicle. It really makes the vehicle feel a lot smaller than it really is and more nimble. So it's actually a plus. I really like the lighter steering. Now, it could be just a little bit more heft to the steering at highway speeds. I do think that, but overall, excellent driving dynamics. Everything from steering to suspension to engine to transmission, everything works really well together. A second area that I think Honda did really well in is the overall style. Honda, I think, really did well on this. The front end, I think, is a right balance of kind of uniqueness, aggressiveness, and aerodynamics. Really does a nice job. The 20-inch wheels really look fantastic, and I think sit and fit really well in the wheel wells. The overall lines are, I think, really strong, and you see here the rear end again looks really nice. And overall, yeah, I think Honda did a really nice job overall on the overall styling. Third, I'm glad that Honda went with a sophisticated all-wheel drive system. It's a really advanced system that has torque vectoring, where they can send and shift power between the front and rear wheels, as well as side to side, left to right, right to left, depending on the conditions. And so what this translates into is better traction in slippery and snowy conditions, as well as some enhanced driving dynamics, particularly like if you were maybe driving in the mountains and some curvy roads and driving a little bit spirited, just a little bit enhanced driving dynamics. So overall, nice to see a sophisticated all-wheel drive system. So number 4 on my list, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the brakes are really strong. Many of you who have owned Hondas know that they have a reputation for brakes that warp, the rotors that warp easily and maybe a little bit underpowered on the braking. The 2023 Honda Pilot does have larger brakes than the previous Pilot, and it shows 15,000 miles, 0 evidence of any warping, and I think the brakes stop this vehicle really well. So kudos to Honda for putting finally some bigger brakes on a larger vehicle, and hope this is a sign of long-term durability with these rotors. So next, number 5 overall is structural integrity, which I have found to be very strong. No rattles in the vehicle, going over rough bumps. You know, there's no kind of jarring through the structure if you hit a pothole, things like that. Overall, it seems to be pretty well built from an integrity standpoint. A couple examples of that too are the doors. They shut with a nice, satisfying thud. Typical Honda fashion. So very kind of satisfying. The doors have a little bit of heft to them, which I find satisfying. from the standpoint of feeling of quality, and no tinny sound at all in the overall feel. So well done there, Honda. Number 6 is the brown interior, which happens to come with this dark silver metallic exterior. The color combination looks really good, and with the nice little leather striping down the middle of the seat back there and the seat cushion. But overall, really good quality leather seats, very comfortable, I'll add, and just a great color combination with this exterior. You see some of the other brown accents, but first time I've had a brown interior, and big fan. Number 7 is the overall space. This is the third row, and our kids and smaller adults haven't had any complaints with sitting in the third row. It's not as big, obviously, as a Honda Odyssey, but has a little bit extra leg room than the previous generation, and seems to work really well. The other thing I'll say is the second row area as well. Lots of space, lots of comfort, and a real nice feature is you can just push this button right here, and the seat automatically folds forward to gain easy access there into the third row. So number 8 on the areas that really like is the highway gas mileage. And overall, well, let me first say that this vehicle is rated at 19 city, 25 highway, and 21 combined. You can see here from the average fuel trip meter here at Trip B, you've got 6,700 miles, and we're averaging 20.8, which is 0.2 below the 21 in mixed. So I would categorize that as generally pretty close to being on target. But the one area that really like is the highway mileage, and like I said, it's 25 EPA rated, but we consistently and pretty easily get 26 and 27 miles per gallon on the highway. And certainly when you're driving, closer to 60 miles an hour, maybe with the cruise control on, it's pretty easy to get 27, 28 in pretty level driving. So generally great highway mileage. Just about every time we beat the 25 mpg on the highway. So rounding out the likes, number 9 here is the overall reliability. This vehicle is the most reliable new Honda vehicle that we have ever owned. And what's interesting about that is that this is an early production model. We ordered the vehicle in November of 2022, took delivery of it in January of 2023. So very early production. And it's been overall very reliable. Nothing has broken on it. The one issue we did have was a plastic piece on one of the middle row seats. But we noticed that right when we took delivery of the vehicle, and it just wasn't, it had a little clip part that was broken, probably from installation of the factory. Really minor, didn't affect anything with the vehicle, and of course was replaced under warranty. But overall, the reliability has been really good. And I hope that's a sign of what's to come down the road. All right, so now let me start with 10 areas that I think Honda could do a rethink on. And these are things that they're not broken or it's any bad, but just for me personally, I think there's another way to do the execution on a few of these items. So the first one here are the fake exhaust ports. So these are just plastic exhaust ports, and what's a little bit maybe disappointing that you see that the exhaust is right there, so it could just be straight out, come right out and have a nice look. I get it. 90% of the people who buy this vehicle don't know the difference, won't notice the difference, don't care. But the 10% of us who do, you notice this, and I wish Honda had not gone the way of Volkswagen and Audi with the fake exhaust tips. Second is, if you want a trailer hitch on the back of this vehicle, it can tow up to 5,000 pounds. You have to have this whole panel replaced with a new panel, one that has a cutout on it. You have to have the hands-free kick sensor to open up the back tailgate moved into a different location. And the overall effort is quite expensive, well over $1,000. And to me, it just seems like it could be much simpler with a cutout there in the middle, maybe a little panel, and an easier way to simplify the installation of a tow hitch. And so I think that's an area that could be rethought. So number 3 on the rethink items is the black plastic molding on the bumper and the sides. I think if you're buying an Elite version, the top of line version, for me, I expect a little bit more luxury type look and feel. I get it, the plastic probably makes it look a little bit more rugged. But so you have this black plastic trim all the way around, the wheel wells, down the side, up and around the wheel wells, on the bottom of the front bumper. And so, yeah, it looks okay, but the challenge is over time, oftentimes these black pieces can fade. And the other piece is that they're kind of actually hard to clean when you're washing the vehicle. And so, at the end, if I want the black to look really nice and dark, I've got to spend an extra 10 to 15 minutes after a wash to use some type of vinyl, rubber, or plastic restorer to give these a nice, real dark look. So next time, Honda, I'd say, particularly on the Elite version, just go ahead and make these color coded with whatever the color of the vehicle is. I could see maybe a little bit of plastic down there on the door sill areas where you might get rocks, but I think overall, for an Elite trim, would prefer to have the painted areas. So I would agree with Joe Rady. If any of you watch him, great YouTuber, he's going to zonk those, and I would agree with him. So the next area is, I'm not sure if it's tire or road noise. This vehicle comes with 20-inch wheels, and these have Bridgestone lenses on them, and overall the ride quality, I would say, is good. They absorb bumps relatively well. On smooth pavement, they are very quiet, but when you get on rough pavement like that, what has what some call alligator backing, or just where it's that real rough, degraded roadway surface that you sometimes see on interstates or some two-lane highways, the sound just reverberates through the cabin. And I can't quite tell if that's a function of not enough sound absorbing material within the tire, and at a certain frequency it just kind of resonates, or if that's a function of the chassis and the suspension, and it just kind of reverberates through the cabin. But I find it to be quite loud inside the vehicle, going down rough pavement roads, to the point that it's noticeable and a bit annoying. So the next area for a rethink, and well, the 2019 Honda Civic called, and hey, it said it wants its infotainment system back. Yeah, this thing looks and feels a little bit like a 2019 Honda Civic, and I think it's time for Honda to move on from this type of design. It's unfortunate that it doesn't have the 12-inch display unit. You can see here the bezeling around that, hopefully in a mid-cycle refresh that will come. This vehicle and the Honda Accord were both developed roughly at the same, or at least they came out at the same time. And the Accord has the larger 12-inch display. I think this one is around 9 inches, and it's unfortunate that this one didn't get the larger display as well, considering that this is the flagship vehicle for Honda. So it's likely that this is going to be a slam dunk for a mid-cycle refresh update. But overall, Honda, I think it's time to move on from this type of slapped-on infotainment display and move into something that's a little bit more integrated with the dash and the dashboard and the other controls. So it's not bad. It functions perfectly fine. It moves well. It's quick to respond, and no problems with it. I just think that in today's world, the expectations are a little bit different on this front. Number 6 of a rethink is the heads-up display. And overall, it works fine and it's very clear. Like it very much. But what's interesting is if you're sitting in the driver's seat and you want to lean your right arm on the center armrest, and you have that kind of leaning toward the middle of the vehicle look, you can kind of easily get out of the view, or at least you start to get to the edge of the head-up display where it cuts off. And I just wish it didn't cut off quite so soon. I wish there was a little bit wider view angle to be able to see the head-up display. So again, it works fine. Opportunity for a little bit of a rethink in terms of the wide angle viewability, because the only way to really see it really clearly is if you're sitting directly straight in the middle of the driver's seat, looking straight ahead with no leaning over. Number 7 on the rethink is the wireless charger. Now, I told you earlier that everything works in the vehicle, and I guess you could say it does. But the wireless charger, in my mind, really doesn't do what it's advertised for. We have gone on long trips. We have put the phones on the wireless charger. It will not charge a phone. It might keep the phone at an existing percentage, but we have not had any luck with it actually gaining percentage on the phone in terms of a recharge. The only thing that does occur is it seems like the phone gets hot, and that's about it. So your better bet's going to be just to plug in the phone directly with a cord if you want a true charge. So Honda seems like this is one that maybe to rethink and work on just a little bit more. So number 8 is related to the gas tank. This vehicle only holds 18.5 gallons, which is I think a little bit on the low side. You know, sometimes in a previous Honda Odyssey we had, it held almost 21 gallons. You could easily go 500 plus miles on a full tank of gas, which was great for long road trips. This vehicle, you can see right here, I've got about 3/4 of a tank, and it's saying I've got 250 miles remaining. But when you fill this up and the tank is full, it's not uncommon. The readout will say you've got 355 miles of range, or you got 360 or 345. And that is not many miles, I think, in a vehicle this size, and given the gas mileage that it gets. It would be nice if this had at least 20 gallon tank, and the ability to go a little bit closer toward 450 to 500 miles on a tank. So that's one area that would love a rethink on. That's probably a little bit bigger structural change in the chassis or the compartment to hold fuel, but it's a little bit on the low side, and that will impact the frequency of when you have to stop and fill up with gas. Number 9, the middle row center seat is very versatile. The back can fold down, the seat can come out, and then you can store it in the rear of the vehicle in a great compartment. But the one area that's a little bit difficult are these headrests. And if you want to get the headrest down, you have to push in both sides of these levers. And given the spacing that they are and their positioning, you can't get like a grab on them to put that down, and then to use your other hand to push down on the top to push the head down. So with 2 hands, you can barely do it, but you almost need 2 people to put this down. So we'd love to see that changed. All right, so rounding out number 10 here on the rethink list, and this is actually one that I think is the most egregious. And I don't quite understand this because I've had other Hondas that didn't do this, but especially on a top trim. Why is there's like this bottom area underneath the driver's seat, about only 1/3 of it is covered by a panel, and then the other 2/3 is just left wide open with the wires exposed, and kind of like you don't touch or see that area much, but sometimes your hands are down grabbing on the front of the seat, or and it just gives you that feeling of not as great a quality as it should be. So this seems like a really simple fix. I'm not sure how this got missed in the design or quality control check, but I've had other Hondas, and they've either had some type of maybe plastic cover or something on the front that would just cover up that a little bit more and make it a little bit smoother. So I think that one is an easy fix, and I'm really not sure why this happened in the first place. All right, so let's move on to 9 nitpicks. And I realize some of these are, yes, they're quite nitpicks, but they're things that I notice, and I suspect that these would be things that other people would notice as well. Again, nothing that's bad or broken for that matter, but just, hey, it might be something that that you notice, and maybe Honda would want to think about some of these things down the road when they do some other updates. So the first one, when you're using the cruise control, you've got this really cool I guess graphic that comes up showing the vehicle, and like if you hit the brakes, the brake lights turn on. If you hit the turn signal kind of shows on it. And so when you've got the cruise control on, it shows you this. It'll show you where cars are, in front or side of you. But when the cruise control is on and you're going down a hill, the cruise control will apply the brakes like all the way down the hill. And why do you say, why do I care? Well, over a long period of time, will that lead to warping rotors? And in previous Hondas that I've had, that when the vehicle is going down a hill and the vehicle is starting to press beyond the desired speed, it'll sometimes downshift. I have a Honda Accord that does that. It'll downshift to help keep the speed. But this vehicle, like if you have the cruise set at 60 and you start to go 61, it immediately starts to put on the brakes. The brakes show up in the screen, and so it's easy for me to tell that the brakes are on. They're applied very lightly, but nonetheless applied for a long time. And I guess just a personal preference. I wish that the vehicle would automatically downshift, given that it's got 10 gears. It could easily downshift to 9 or 8 and kind of hold that constant speed without having to apply the brakes and adding brake wear. So again, that's the first nitpick. So the next nitpick is one related to really only if you own both a newer Acura and a newer Honda product. This is the parking brake, and you push it down. You push it down to turn it off. You pull it up to turn it on. Pretty simple, pretty intuitive. But here's the interesting thing: is that I have a 2020 Acura RDX, and the functionality is the opposite. You push it down to engage and up to release, which is, so you've got two different functions in two different Honda products. And while that seems, not that big of a deal, it's ironic in how often that I get into the different vehicles that I'm driving, and you're constantly pushing these buttons one way or the other, and you can't quite remember which vehicle you're in from the standpoint of which functionality goes which way. So again, not a big deal, but it's just, I find it interesting that in the Honda and Acura products, maybe not all of them, but perhaps in some of them, you've got a different functionality for how the parking brake works. Number 3, I wish that this was a little bit different. You can see here, and maybe you can see in the video, it flexes just a little bit. I don't know, it's a little plasticky. It collects dust and dirt in the crevice. Obviously, if you've got cups over here and you spill a little bit of water or, coffee or whatever, you can short out the push button controls. I do like the push button controls. They're simple, they're easy to use. No problems from that standpoint, but I wish maybe that this was just a little bit higher quality, because it's something that you're feeling pretty often. And I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity to put something up on the dash somewhere and get them out of the way, and then you can even open up the space just a little bit more. So anyhow, just gloss plastic there. You can see probably some of the dust particles on there, and just wish that might have been just a little bit higher quality material. The next nitpick is related to the radio. And for some odd reason in this vehicle, when you turn the ignition off, it'll automatically turn off the radio. And in the Acura products, the radio stays on until you open the door. In the previous generation Pilot, the radio stayed on until you open the door. But in this vehicle, you turn the power off, and the radio goes off. And so that's such a simple change. And Honda's already done it before. I don't know why this would be any additional cost. Given that you've done it before, it's got to be just a simple coding in the programming. But it would be nice to have the radio stay on when you turn it off and you're still in the vehicle and the doors aren't opened yet. And that'd be a nice little feature to add back on. So the next nitpick are the fog lights. And what I have found is that these fog lights, they do an okay job projecting light off to the side, just directly off to the side here, but there's no illumination directly in front of the vehicle. Sometimes I like to have a little bit of illumination directly in front of the vehicle just to enhance that. If you're driving in rain, or where the black asphalt and the asphalt's dark, and it's just a little bit harder to see there. And I wish these fog lights projected just a little bit more directly in front of the vehicle, because right now they only project off to the side, which is helpful. There's value in that, but I just wish it had a little bit more illumination going in directly in front of the vehicle as well. So the next area of a nitpick is this door panel gap. This is between the driver's side front door and the rear passenger door. And I've measured this gap right in here, and it's 6.8 millimeters, 6.8, which is quite a gap. And Now, I mentioned earlier this is an early production vehicle. It's possible that this type of a thing would be corrected by now. But I mean, overall, the door, it sits fine. It's flush. All the seals, are proper on the front side of the door. The gapping seems pretty consistent. Maybe just a little bit narrower down there at the end. But this doesn't, I think, impact the overall quality. There are some that would say that panel gaps are an indication of quality. I don't know. I think Hondas in general and Acuras don't have super tight panel gaps, and that's just a function of what their tolerance levels are in their production, and that's what they choose to do. But in this particular case, you can tell there that seems just a little bit too wide. All right, so next on the nitpick list, the 2003 Honda Pilot called, and it wants its roof rails back. Yes, these roof rails, I don't know, I guess they look kind of rugged, but I find them to be a bit old-fashioned. And when you look at the previous Honda Pilot, it has the more kind of, I'd say, integrated, elegant, a little lower profile roof rails. When you look at all the competitors, I think all of them have, kind of the lower profile roof rails. So, okay, it's fine, it looks okay, but to me, it's just not quite as elegant as you would expect on the top line trim for the Honda Pilot Elite. Next on the nitpick list, the mud flaps. These have to be the dinkiest, smallest mud flaps I have ever seen on a Honda product. And what I think is a little bit unfortunate, you see right here, I think Honda missed an opportunity to have a little bit more of an integrated mud flap with the trim piece there. So you see, kind of right into there, you have this, this little visual gap where you see the tire. It's not, kind of a straight line, and to me, from a design standpoint, is a missed opportunity. But yeah, those mud flaps, very small. You look at the front one, I don't know. I'm not saying that this thing needs really huge mud flaps, but boy, they're tiny. And finally, number 9 on the nitpicks list, and maybe this is either actually one that I would put on the rethink list, but let's say you go to the gas station and you want to wash your windshield, and so you want to raise the wipers up. Well, you see the wiper arms hit the hood here, and so it makes it a little bit cumbersome. You see on both sides, the wiper hits so you can't raise it up, and you got to hold the wiper up while you're putting something underneath. You can't just prop the wipers up and do what you need to do in terms of washing the windshield. The other place where this comes to be a little bit of an annoyance is when you want to change out the wiper blades. And so now you have to go through a process looking through the owner's manual. We have to go through some steps, and the wipers will come up, and then they go to a 45-degree angle or so up on the windshield, and then you can remove the wiper components. But I mean, that's just an extra step, a process. I'm surprised that there's not some other wiper design that could give some flexibility here. I guess maybe they're tucked underneath and for aerodynamics. I get that, but I just wish that there was another design that would make this a little bit simpler of a process. So wrapping up, overall, I think this is a fantastic vehicle. It's got great reliability, great driving dynamics. I think the style is excellent, and overall, it's a vehicle that really meets the needs of our family of 5. Sure, I think in a vehicle like this, a lot of great qualities. There's no vehicle that is designed absolutely perfectly, and everything is able to be executed in the way that every customer would want. But I hope that my rethink ideas and nitpicks are some things that might be helpful for an owner to know at least what they're getting into. And again, none of them are bad or basically detriments to the vehicle, but hopefully these can serve as some ideas for Honda product planners and those who might be working on a mid-cycle refresh or the next version of the Honda Pilot, and some things to think about. But overall, I think the Honda engineers, product planners should be really proud. Great job, excellent overall execution. You put a great vehicle out here on the roads, and great vehicle to drive. So thank you for your time and hope that was helpful.